Welcome to another Excel VBA tutorial. We're continuing on how to export Excel list objects into Word. So in our last video, we saw how we can take one list object and export that to a Word document. Now that we've done a single one, we are going to now move on to multiple list objects or multiple Excel tables. It's going to be broken into two sections. The first section, we're going to work on a single worksheet, and then we're going to export all the list objects across the entire workbook in the second section of the video. So let's jump into it. First thing we're going to do is want to go into our Visual Basic editor. So I'm just going to click my icon. And then from here, you should insert a new module. So you should do right click, down to insert, and then module. And then from here, we need to enable the Word object model. So the Word object model allows us to declare Word objects from within the Excel VBA editor, and also we get some added benefit related to IntelliSense, so we can write our code just a little bit faster. To enable this library, we need to go up to the top section of our ribbon bar, so right up here. And then we're going to go to Tools, down to References, and the thing that I have on my system, because I've used this before, is I see the library at the top. So I already have this library enabled. It's called the Microsoft Word Object Library. However, if this is the first time you've ever used this library, you will not see it here up at the top. You will need to scroll down for M for Microsoft, and then W for Word, and it should be somewhere right around here. All you want to do is you want to go in that little box, and you just want to make sure it has a check in it. So if you click it, it has a check in it. And then after that, you can actually press OK. So if you have a different number though, so if you have a smaller number, don't worry, that just means you're on an earlier version of Office and you have an earlier version of this object library. Everything we're going to do in today's video should work unless you're on a very, very early version, from the early 2000s or something like that. Other than that, it should work fine. We're going to press OK because it's enabled now, and we can start writing our subroutine. So we're going to write sub list object to Word, and then I'll do multi just to make it simple. And then the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to declare my variables. They're going to come in two groups. We're going to have our Word variables and then our Excel variables. I'm going to declare my Word variables first. And the first one that I'm going to declare is going to be called Word app, and this will be the Word.application object. So just like Excel is an application, Word is an application, and here we're going to create a new instance of it, and we're going to store it in this variable so that way we can reference it later in our code. And just because we have an application doesn't mean there's actually anything inside of it. Well, we're going to want to put a document inside our application, so we're going to create another variable that is going to be called Word doc, and then this will be a Word document object. So this is kind of like an Excel workbook, but now we're in Word, so a workbook is now a document, and so this will be the actual document where we're going to add some different information to it. And then from here, we're actually putting a very particular type of object in our Word document. It is called a Word table, so I'm going to want to be able to reference that table and then do some formatting. Well, I'm going to create a new object variable that will be a Word table object. And so this will allow me to store the tables that I copy over into Word into this actual object variable, from which point I can then reference it if I so choose. And then in this one, we're going to declare our Excel variable. So this is our second group of variables. And we're only going to declare one. So this one that we're going to declare is going to be called Excel list object. And then this one, as you guessed, will be a list object variable. And so this will actually house each individual list object that we want to copy over from our worksheet into Word. From here, we need to create a new instance of Word because, actually, if you look right down here at my little window bar, you'll notice that there's actually no Word application. So I actually want to be able to have a new instance of it that I can see. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new instance of Word. And how do I do this? Well, I'm going to set that Word app equal to a new Word.application instance. So a new word object application, so a new instance of it. Now, just because I have a new instance doesn't mean I can see it. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to call this new object that I've created an instance of, and now I can go into the methods and properties of it. Well, the first property that I'm going to set is going to be visible, and I'm going to set that equal to true. And then I'm going to call the activate method, and this will bring the word object application itself to the front of my window, so it's the main screen that I'm seeing. So this will make sure that it's very visible from my perspective as a user. And then from here, if we run it, let's see what we get. Okay, so we have an application now, but as you can tell, there's no actual document inside this application. So we want to create a document. So we're going to create a new document in the application. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the word doc equal to the word app. So I'm going to go inside the word application object. I'm going to go into the documents collection that belongs to the application. So this collection contains all the individual Word documents that are currently open. Well, right now there's none because we haven't created any. But if I call the add method, it will add a new document to that collection. So now I can now reference this new document that I've created by setting it equal to this Word doc object variable. And then again, I can now leverage the properties and methods of this particular document. So if I run this now, let's see what we get. Okay, so now we get the application with the document inside it. It's starting to look more of like what we're used to seeing. So this is the Word application that we're used to seeing when we open Word. It has document and we can start typing right away. So now that we have our Word application set up, let's go into our Excel worksheet and begin looping through each individual list object, copying it, and then moving it over to Word. Now in the first section, all I'm concerned about is with these two list objects. So table 4 and table 3. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a loop that will loop through both of those list objects on that worksheet. So I'm going to loop through the list objects on the active sheet. And so I'm going to say for each Excel list object in active sheet dot list objects, so the list objects collection. Go to the next one. So now I'm setting up my loop. Now ideally what we're doing is we're referencing the active sheet that we're on, and then we know that each worksheet in our particular workbook, they have a collection on it. That collection is called a list objects collection. Now there's actually multiple object collections that live on a worksheet. We want to work with the list objects one because that contains all of the actual Excel tables or list objects that belong to that particular sheet. Now in this example, I'm just referring to the active sheet, but maybe you wanted sheet 1 or sheet 2. Then all you would have to do is either put in the code name, or you could use the sheets or worksheets collection and then pass through the key or the index using that particular method. So there's multiple ways we can do this, but in this example, I'm okay with it being the active sheet. And now that I've created my loop that will loop through each of these objects, I'm going to copy each object. So I'm going to copy the list object. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to call that Excel list object. I'm going to go in the range property. So this is the range that it takes up on my worksheet. And then I'm going to call the copy method. And then this will copy it to my clipboard. And I just want to let you know that this range property is really talking about this entire little range right here. So in the first table, table 4, its range is from B2 to E5. That's the range property. And I can use that property to basically say, hey, which section of my worksheet do I want to copy? And then from here, a good habit to get into is we usually pause our application for stability issues. So a lot of times when we're exporting or copying a lot of different pieces of data, it's a good habit to give Excel enough time to make sure all that information makes it into the clipboard. So what we like to do is pause the application for 1 second. Sometimes it's better to do it for 2 or 3. And then really what we're talking about is the Excel application. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the application object. So the Excel application itself. There's something called the wait method. And now I can pass through, I want to wait from the time it is plus 1 second. So all I'm going to do is going to be at 12:01 a.m. Well, 12:00:01 a.m. So this just represents 1 second from whatever time it is during the execution of this script. And then from here, what we can do is we can paste our list object into the actual work document. So ideally, it's made it into the clipboard, so now we can paste it. So we'll paste the object into the Word document. So paste list object into the Word document. And so I'm going to say, okay, well, with my active selection that I currently have, I think it's sometimes better just to show you what the selection really is. So I'll just run this right now. So as you can tell, I've created a new Word document, and that little cursor right there is flashing. That is actually representing the current selection within my Word application itself. So a selection can be across different applications. I can have many different selections in my Office applications. I can have one in PowerPoint, I can have one in Excel, I can have one in Word if I have all these applications present currently. Now, I want to make sure that I'm working with the Word selection, so the Word selection in my document. So what I need to do is I need to actually specify the application that I'm talking about first, and then specify the selection. So what we have to do is if we go with Word app and then we go to the selection property, this will now reference the selection that we have currently in the Word document. And then I can close that off with an end with statement, and anything we apply is now going to be done to this selection. And so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to paste something. So we're going to paste that Excel table. Well, lucky for us, I actually have a built-in method called paste Excel table. When we use this method, though, we have to pass through all 3 parameters. So the first one is linked to Excel, and then colon equal is equal to true, and then Word formatting. This is saying, do you want it to be the formatting in Word? I'm okay with that being true. And then rich text format, it's just more formatting than anything. I'll put that equal to true. So from here, we can now kind of run our script, and then we'll do some others. Well, not technically right now, but we could if we wanted to. But there's going to be some issues where if we actually run it now, they'll basically stack it on top of each other. So I'll just show it to you to kind of demonstrate what would go wrong. What's going on? Okay, so right here, we got the clipboard error. It's saying the clipboard is empty or not valid. So that means we're probably going to have to pause it just a tiny bit longer. Let's just do 3 seconds to be absolutely safe. Again, we didn't do anything wrong. We just got the clipboard error. Now you've seen it in action. I think this is probably our 3rd time doing it. Perfect. So as you can tell, it pasted both Excel list objects into the Word document, but maybe we wanted each one of these tables to be on its own individual page. So what we would need to do is add a new page before we go and paste the next one. So what we're going to do is we'll actually do some formatting first, and then we'll add the new section. So we'll say format the table. Well, I need to create a reference to the table in Word. So in this situation, I'm going to set my Word table equal to my Word app no, it's Word docs. We're going to go to the Word document itself, into the tables collection, and then from here, I need to specify which table I'm talking about. Now, I'm going to use the index method to do this, and the index method basically just means that, well, the order in which they were created. So at each point in this loop, I can just count the number of list objects, and that will always give me the last one that I created. So if I go into the word app, I go into tables, not app, sorry, I did it again, tables, and then the tables collection has a count property. This will count all the tables in my document at that current time. And so basically it will just return the index of the latest one. I'm okay with that at this point. If we had to make it a little bit more advanced, well, we want to format it the first one first and then the third one second, then it gets a little bit more complicated. But at this juncture, let's just keep it simple. And we'll just set some properties about it. So for example, we'll say, we'll go into the word table, allow auto fit property, we'll set that equal to true, and then we'll take the word table again, and then we'll do the auto fit behavior, and then we can put here auto fit to window. So this will basically mean it's going to take up the entire document space. And then we'll do some spacing, I guess. Well, I did spacing in the last one, so that's fine. We'll just keep it like this for right now. Oh. And then let's take a look at some other stuff. Maybe borders? Nah, we'll just keep it simple. I don't want to confuse too many people at this point. Let's just do some of this. Okay, so this will do some formatting to the table, but actually what we want to do first is we want to add a new section. So basically what this means is when we add this table, let's add a new actual page to this document and then paste the next table. So we're going to create a new page. And a simple way of doing it is we can just add a new section. So we'll just go into the Word app, into the active document, and then into the sections collection, and then we can do add. So the active document being the document that we're currently in. Technically speaking, you could also do, the Word doc object itself. But again, I'm just kind of trying to show you some different ways of doing it. So we'll do the active document, and then we need to go to the newly created page. So we'll go to the new page, and what we'll do is we'll go into the Word app, into the selection property, and then to the go-to method. So we're going to say, hey, take our selection, go somewhere else. Well, what kind of go-to do we want to do? Well, we want to Word go to, and then we can go to a page. So you can do like a bookmark, you can do like a section, and a lot of different stuff like that. We'll do a page in this example, and then we'll do, well, which do you want to do? And then you actually get some options too. So you can go to next, first, last. I'm okay with being next for right now. And then just to be kind of safe, we'll clear the clipboard just to, again, add some more stability to the program. So clear my clipboard. And then we'll go into the Excel application because that's technically the one that's copying it. We'll do the copy mode and we'll set that equal to false. And then we'll go to the next one. And then when we're all said and done, let's go back to the first page in our document. And so again, we're going to use the Word app selection. So we'll just take this one. So we'll just take this one, and then we'll go to the first page. Go to, and then you can see go to next, go to object, go to previous. I want to go to the first. Perfect. So this has everything we really need to run our script now. Let's try it out and see if it does exactly what we want. Again, we're pausing it for 3 seconds, so it might be a little slow when we're waiting. Okay, so it added the new page. Great, and then it took us back to the first page. Okay, as you can tell, fixing all that. And so it took it, it applied the formatting to it. So now the formatting is within Word. Well, you kind of saw that from the first one. And then it expanded it open. And then also it added each individual list object to their own individual page, and it made sure it fit the entire page content. And then it took us back to the first page. So pretty good so far. It does exactly what we want. Now let's move on to if we want to take all the list objects from the actual, the workbook itself. Now in this example, we don't really need to change that much. We just need to do an outer loop, and we have to declare one more variable. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to declare my worksheet variable. And as you guessed, this is the actual worksheet itself. And then I'm going to add another line of code that will allow us to loop through all the worksheets in the active workbook. Now there's technically different ways we can do this. And I'm going to close my next. And then I'm picky, so I'm going to indent it. So I'm going to say for each worksheet in active workbook dot worksheet, so the worksheets collection. And then I need to change this one to not be the active sheet anymore. I want it to be the worksheet that we are in the current loop, and then the list object collection that belongs to that worksheet. Now, technically, I can do active workbook. I could also do this workbook. That's okay too. If you're going to use this workbook, please make sure that you do not put this in your personal macro workbook, because this workbook refers to the workbook that houses your code. And so if you put it in your personal macro workbook, it's referencing that workbook. So not the one that contains the list objects. Other than that, really, we don't have to change too much. We just had to do that outer loop. Let's see how it looks now. We might get a stability issue. If we do, we'll just go and fix it. Sometimes, not always, we have to activate the actual, the list object worksheet. Sorry, the worksheet that the list object is on. Not always, but sometimes. So let's see what it did. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So it did exactly what we were doing. So I'm going to close that out. Sometimes, not always, what I like to do just to be safe is I'll put worksheet.activate. I have found that if I don't actually activate the worksheet, sometimes the code will sporadically not work anymore. This is, again, it seems to be a stability issue in the sense of that all of a sudden Excel can't know what we're talking about when we're saying, hey, we mean this worksheet or that worksheet. So if you're really cautious and you really want to make sure that it works, you've got to do 3 different things. You have to activate the worksheet, you have to pause the application for apparently a decent amount of time, and then you have to do the cut copy mode. So those are kind of my little techniques if I'm really worried about stability. I would do that kind of stuff. So that does it for today's video. If you have any questions about how to take list objects and copy them over from Excel to Word, please put those questions down in the comments below, and I'll try to get back to you. Also, if you could make sure to like the video, we always appreciate the support, so we're always here to see it. And then also, if you're not already, make sure to subscribe to the channel so that way you get regular updates as we release new videos. So I'm going to finish up the Outlook model in a little bit. And then what we're going to do next is we'll probably go back into Word, work with some tables, and then I'm going to go back to Excel. We're going to talk about pivot tables, and then I'm going to go into PowerPoint, and we're going to talk more about slides and how we can format them. And then ideally, I'm going to go back into Outlook, and we'll talk about emails and how we can do some of the more complicated stuff when it comes to adding content to it, and just all that kind of fancy stuff. So we have a lot lined up. Don't act like we don't have a lot lined up. We have plenty lined up, but that's kind of just what's down to pipeline. And then we also have our Python material as well. So that one, we're going to go to YouTube, then we're going to go to AlphaVantage to start talking about pulling stock information, and then ideally I'm going to start trying to do more of the basic stuff, so going over functions, classes, start going into if statements and loops. That's all pretty basic stuff. So once you're kind of familiar with the VBA stuff, yeah, it's different. It's in a different language, but it should be all the same really at the end of the day. But that's kind of just a indicator of what's coming down the pipe. Thanks again for watching, guys. We will see you in the next video.